Yuchechi's eyes fluttered open to a ceiling she didn't recognize. Her breath caught in her throat as the sterile scent of disinfectant hit her nose. The dull beep of machines echoed beside her, and the weight of stillness sat heavy on her chest. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Her fingers twitched. Her throat felt like sandpaper. When she tried to speak, no sound came out. Only a single tear rolled down her cheek, her first conscious movement in nearly 7 months. The nurse who rushed and screamed, then laughed and cried all at once. "You're awake. Oh my God, you're actually awake," she called out, pressing the emergency button and clutching Yuchechi's trembling hand. But Yuchechi's mind wasn't celebrating. It was racing. Where is Ikena? Where is my husband? Where is Amara? The last thing she remembered was Ikena's hand wrapped around hers in the ambulance, whispering, "Stay with me. I'm not going anywhere." Then darkness. Now daylight. But no Ikena. No Amara. Just strangers and a clock she didn't understand. Over the next week, Yuchechi began to piece fragments together. The accident. The coma. The world that moved on without her. She asked for Ikena daily. "He'll be contacted," the nurses said. She asked for Amara. They paused. "We believe she visits. Sometimes." That word believe dug into her skin. 10 days after waking, she was strong enough to sit up and hold a spoon. She asked for her phone. The nurse hesitated. "It's been a while. We're not sure it's still working." "I need it," Yuchechi said with quiet urgency. When they brought it to her, the screen was cracked but still responsive. The moment she unlocked it, she froze. Notifications poured in like a tidal wave. Weeks, months, a life she wasn't part of. Her heart raced as she opened her gallery. And then she saw it. A photo posted just 6 weeks ago. Her husband, Ikena, dressed in a gold-trimmed agbada, grinning like a man reborn. Standing beside him, in a white lace wedding gown, was Amara, her best friend, smiling, hand in hand, wearing Yuchechi's wedding ring. She dropped the phone. The room spun. The nurse rushed in, but Yuchechi raised a hand. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. She wasn't fine. She wasn't dead either. And they were about to find out what happened when a woman who had lost everything woke up. Yuchechi sat in the wheelchair by the window, staring at a world that had moved on without her. She watched strangers pass by, laughing, calling, living. And somewhere out there, Ikena and Amara were married. Not secretly, not ashamed, publicly, legally, proudly. The same best friend who once held Yuchechi's bridal veil as she said, "I do," had now replaced her. A nurse walked in with breakfast, humming casually. "Mr. Ikena hasn't visited?" she asked, glancing at the untouched food. Yuchechi shook her head. Her voice was still weak, but her eyes said everything. "He came once," the nurse added quietly, setting down the tray. "Months ago, with the other woman. He said he needed to confirm your status. That was all." "I'm sorry. Confirm her status?" She wasn't a death certificate. She was a wife, a woman, person. But to them, she was just a comma in their new sentence. When the doctor finally cleared her for limited discharge, Yuchechi made a single request. "I need to see a lawyer." He raised an eyebrow. "Family matters?" She didn't blink. "Fraud, identity theft, bigamy." He looked stunned, but didn't ask more. That same day, Yuchechi was wheeled into a small legal office in town. She sat across from a young woman in glasses who looked like she didn't know whether to cry or cheer. "You're the coma patient from Odinii Hospital," the lawyer whispered. "The one whose husband remarried?" Yuchechi nodded once. Calm, controlled, focused. "I need to know what they did," she said. "Legally, financially, everything." The lawyer leaned forward. "Before we begin, I need to ask, how strong is your heart?" Yuchechi smiled, thin, cold. "Strong enough to break theirs." That afternoon, they began digging. And what they found wasn't just betrayal, it was obliteration. Ikena had declared her brain dead within 3 weeks of the accident. He signed a death affidavit without a coroner's certificate. Somehow it passed. A clerical loophole, a forged signature. He didn't even wait the full 90 days. He sold their house, emptied her bank account, wiped her name off everything they owned. Then he married Amara 6 months in. Legally, boldly, in the same church where he once vowed forever to Uchechi. The final blow? He transferred the deed to her late mother's land into Amara's name. The only thing Uchechi had left from her family. He erased you, the lawyer whispered. No, Uchechi said softly. He buried me alive. She leaned forward, steady, her fingers wrapping around the edge of the desk. But now, she continued, her voice firming, I'm awake, and I'm going to make sure they both hear me. The lawyer stared at her, stunned, because Uchechi didn't look broken anymore. She looked like a woman who had just come back from the dead, with a plan. Uchechi stood in front of the mirror for the first time in months. The hospital gown was gone. In its place, a simple black dress, pressed and plain. No makeup, no jewelry, just her. Scarred, slimmer, but whole. Her eyes no longer looked lost. They burned slow, like a fire that had been waiting patiently to spread. The lawyer, Adaora, had arranged everything, documents, court filings, medical records. But Uchechi wanted one thing before court, to see them, in person, not through photos, not in memory. She wanted to look at the people who replaced her. She wanted to watch them smile, unaware the storm was already circling their perfect little sky. So she went. A church event. Amara was hosting a Women of Grace fundraiser. The irony stung like salt in her mouth. Uchechi arrived in a taxi, sunglasses low on her nose, scarf tied tightly around her hair. She walked in alone. No one noticed. She walked past women who once hugged her at baby showers and called her Sisi Uche. They didn't blink twice. Maybe they thought she was a guest from out of town. Maybe they didn't care. But when she stepped into the main hall, she saw them. Amara stood on stage, glowing in a peach gown, laughing into the microphone as she thanked everyone for their donations. Beside her, holding a baby boy, Kenna, their son. Uchechi's throat closed. The math didn't add up. He had a child with her while she was still in a coma? Her knees nearly gave out. But she didn't cry. She clutched the back of a chair and steadied herself. They were up there, smiling, talking about family and second chances and God's mercy. The crowd clapped. Amara kissed the baby's forehead. Uchechi watched from the back, unseen, like a ghost. She stood for 10 minutes. Then she turned and left, silently. Back in the car, she sat beside Adaora, silent. Did it help? The lawyer asked gently. Uchechi nodded once. Her voice was barely a whisper. I saw what I needed to see. What now? Uchechi reached into her bag and pulled out a single document. A copy of her original marriage certificate. Still valid. Still binding. Legally, Amara's marriage was null and void. Her eyes met Adaora's. We're not just filing for damages, she said quietly. We're filing for criminal charges. Bigamy, fraud, property theft, identity manipulation. And we're doing it publicly. Adaora's breath caught. You're ready for that storm? Uchechi looked out the window as raindrops began to fall, the sky turning dark above the city skyline. They thought I died, she said softly. But I was only sleeping. And now, it's their turn to wake up. The courtroom was packed. Not because anyone knew the details, but because someone had leaked a rumor. A dead woman was suing her husband and best friend. The headline had spread like wildfire. No one believed it. Until now. And there she was, Uchechi. Alive. Real. Standing in front of everyone in a fitted navy suit. Head held high. Walking into the courtroom with a presence that sent a chill through every whispering mouth. Akena's face went pale the moment she entered. He stood beside Amara, arm around her protectively like he could somehow shield her from a tsunami he didn't see coming until it was too late. His eyes met Uchechi's. But she didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just looked through him like he was a piece of paper she'd already read and discarded. Amara gasped audibly. Her lipstick trembled. It was like seeing a ghost. The judge entered. Court is now in session. Adaora stood up confidently. Your Honor, we are here today on behalf of Mrs. Uchechi Onwalu, who was legally declared dead by her husband without sufficient medical verification, and who is, as we can all see, very much alive. A murmur rippled through the crowd. We are filing for full criminal prosecution. Forgery, identity theft, illegal remarriage, property theft, and bigamy. Ikenna's lawyer jumped up, already sweating. Your Honor, my client believed, he truly believed, she was gone. It was an honest mistake. Grief. Uchechi's voice rang out, calm and clear. He had a child with my best friend 3 months after my accident. The room froze, and he didn't wait 90 days to declare me dead. He forged signatures. He took my land, sold my home. He married her in the same church where he vowed forever to me. Amara covered her face. Ikenna tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. Edaora handed the bailiff a stack of documents. Your Honor, here is her active marriage certificate, which was never legally annulled or dissolved, her hospital report, the forged affidavit, and the property transfer papers with Uchechi's signature, except she was in a coma when they were signed. The judge looked through the pages in stunned silence. Every page was a nail in the coffin they had built for her. Uchechi stood still. She didn't cry. She didn't gloat. She just stood there, whole, dignified, and unbothered. The judge finally looked up. This case is no longer civil. He turned to Ikenna and Amara. We're now moving forward with a full criminal investigation. Ikenna slumped. Amara burst into quiet sobs. And Uchechi? She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the crowd. She wasn't hiding anymore. For the first time, the world saw her. Not the woman they buried, but the one who dug herself out. The courtroom was silent after the judge's ruling. No one moved. No one whispered. The bailiff had escorted Amara and Ikenna into a separate room for processing while paperwork was filed. The judge called a short recess, but Uchechi remained seated. She wasn't here for drama. She wasn't here to destroy them. She was here to be seen, heard, counted. Edaora leaned in. We can leave now if you want. You've done enough. But Uchechi shook her head. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Not yet. I need to speak to them. Edaora hesitated. That's risky. They need to hear from the woman they thought was gone. 20 minutes later, Uchechi walked into the small private chamber where Ikenna and Amara sat, flanked by their lawyer and 2 officers. The moment they saw her, Amara looked away in shame. Ikenna's eyes were bloodshot. Whether from fear or regret, she didn't care to know. Uchechi sat down across from them. Her hands folded in her lap. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't call them names. She just spoke. You could have waited. Her words cut through the silence like glass. You could have mourned me, prayed for me, fought for me. But instead you replaced me. You erased me. Amara's lips trembled. Uchechi, we didn't know if you'd ever wake up. He was grieving. Grieving. Uchechi's voice was low, measured. You were wearing my ring and carrying his child while I was still fighting for my life. Ikenna buried his face in his hands. You didn't bury me because you thought I was dead, she continued. You buried me because it was easier, because my silence was convenient. Tears welled in Amara's eyes, but Uchechi didn't stop. You had a choice, Amara. You were my sister. You knew my secrets, my dreams, the way I cried the first night in that house. You toasted my wedding, helped plan it. And you... Her eyes met Ikenna's, steady and sharp. You promised me forever. He looked up, finally, eyes pleading. Uchechi, I was lost. I thought. No, she interrupted. You chose. And now you live with the cost of that choice. She stood. I didn't come here for revenge. I'm not here to take back the house or the cars or even the land. I came to take back me. I came to remind you and everyone else what it looks like when a woman rises from the dead. She turned and walked to the door. But just before leaving, she looked back once. You took my name off the documents, off the deeds, off the story you told people. She gave a faint smile. But you couldn't take it off my destiny. Then she walked out, And this time they were the ones watching her disappear. 3 months later, Yuchechi stood on the balcony of her new apartment overlooking the city. The morning sun stretched across the skyline, bathing the concrete in gold. It was peaceful. It was hers. And for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. Not just breathing, but living. The court had ruled in her favor. Akena was facing jail time. Amara's marriage was annulled. Her properties and financial assets had been restored. But Yuchechi hadn't touched a kobo from any of it. Not yet, because the real victory hadn't been financial. It was the moment she walked back into the world without shame. The moment strangers no longer whispered, "That poor woman." But, "That strong woman." She sipped her tea, flipping through a folder filled with papers. Business plans, registrations, designs. She was launching her own nonprofit, Woman Unbroken, a legal and emotional support initiative for women who had been silenced, erased, or betrayed by people who once claimed to love them. It wasn't just therapy. It was recovery. It was justice with a heartbeat. A knock on her door pulled her out of her thoughts. It was Adaora, smiling with a file in her hand. "Your new identification just arrived," she said, handing it over. Yuchechi opened it. Name, Yuchechi Nkemdalim Onwalu. Status, restored. Valid. Alive. She stared at it for a long moment. Her fingers brushed over the name. "I didn't realize how much it mattered," she said softly. "Just seeing my name again, knowing it wasn't stolen." Adaora smiled. "You didn't just get your name back, Yuchechi. You rewrote it." They stood there in silence for a while, watching the city move. "What will you do next?" Adaora asked. Yuchechi smiled faintly. "Live, laugh, breathe, build, a pause, and maybe love again, but this time with open eyes. And no blind faith." They both laughed quietly. Downstairs, 2 girls walked past the gate, talking about the case, about the woman who returned from the dead, not to cause chaos, but to take back her truth. Yuchechi didn't interrupt them. She just listened. And as she turned back into her apartment, she paused one last time and whispered to herself, "They buried me in silence, but I rose in truth." And that's louder than anything they ever said. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.